Hi, my name is Justin. I'm with Swimming Pool Services in Waukesha, Wisconsin. I'm going to show you how to take apart a Pentair Clean and Clear 420 square foot filtration system and remove the filters and clean them and then put it back together and turn your pool back on. First, when you're doing this, you want to make sure that no matter what kind of pool system you have, whether you have a timer or you have an on-off switch for your pump or you have an automation style pool where the pump is running on schedules, that before you take your filter apart, you need to make sure that your pool pump is safely turned off and that it cannot turn back on. Once you've ensured that that has been accomplished and you're ready to take the filter apart, for this specific filtration system, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to open the air relief valve on top of the filter dome. So you'll notice on top of this system, this Pentair system, the word open. You'll spin this open. And the reason we're doing this is because we want to drain all of the water down in this tank so that when we take this band clamp off right here, we don't get full of water and, soaked. Um, as the water's draining down in this tank, there's two tools that you'll need for taking the filter apart and putting it back together. One of them is a rubber mallet. The other one is a deep socket ratchet, 7/8 inch. So a deep socket ratchet, 7/8 inch. What we're going to do is we're going to go over to this barrel nut right here that's on the side of the filter. And we're going to loosen it up, lefty-loosey, until we get the whole barrel nut completely threaded off. Once you've loosened it up enough with your deep socket ratchet, then you can spin by hand as long as you hold these two pieces together until the barrel nut gets off of the threaded bolt. I will note that it is quite a long bolt since the system is rated for being pressurized, so just be patient as you spin it off. After you get the brass nut off, what I normally do is I set it down right on the ground. The next piece is a washer with a bigger hole that fits in this barrel nut assembly. I'll put that right on top. Then the spring. And then there's one more washer, which has a smaller hole that fits specifically on this bolt, this threaded bolt. So I'll take that entire assembly. I will keep it together so that it's ready to go for when I put the system back on. It is very important that you have all four of these components when you put this band clamp back on, or it will ruin the band clamp prematurely as it ages, the system ages. All these units also have a sticker right here with instructions and the assembly. Then, now that I've got all the hardware off, I'm going to take the band clamp off. You can either take it all the way off, or I'll usually rest it on the black manifold of the filter inlet. And now we're ready to take the filter dome off. When doing so, do not grab right here on top of the filter pressure gauge because there's a chance that you could just break the pressure gauge off. So I recommend putting your two fingers right here on top of the mold where the air relief valve threads into the top of the dome. Put your fingers underneath and you're going to lift straight up. When I take the filter dome off, I personally do not set it straight down like this. I set it on its side for the reason that I don't want to get something such as a pine needle or anything stuck around the rim of the filter so that it causes a small drip leak and I got to do this whole process again. So here are the filters. There's four of them. Each filter is 105 square feet. So 105 times 4 equals a 420 square foot filtration system. The top of the filter here has a black X manifold that comes off. And then there's a little screen right here with some really awesome stuff on it. You just feel free to take all that off. Don't be alarmed. All of this stuff pops off. The 420 filter is very nice in the fact that everything's removable and you can kind of take pieces apart and put them back together very easily. So you can take the screen off, clean all that gunk off there, and now your filters are ready to come out. So these filters are quite dirty. They pop out. They don't thread in. So whenever I'm cleaning filters, what I will do is I will start from top to bottom, and I'll go up and down, and then I will also go side to side. And then once I go up and down, you want to get in between all of the pleats, because that's where a lot of the slime, the gunk, the lotions, hair products, all of that stuff gets trapped, and they get very slimy. Um, but once I get to the bottom of the filters and I clean them all the way, obviously I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. I will flip them upside down, and I will do the same thing top to bottom, going back down the opposite way. Typically, cleaning filters can take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how dirty they are and how much debris is in them. At least once a year, you want to chemically clean your filters. And we also recommend having 2 sets of filters. That not only allows you to leisurely clean that dirty set and put the clean one in, not be under the gun to get your system turned back on, but it also helps the length. We've learned it helps the length of life of the filters, because you don't just have one set which is constantly under pressure and in chemicals. All right, now that we've rinsed off the filters and we're ready to put them back into the filter system, for this clean and clear Pentair system, they don't thread in, they just sit right on top of the manifold that looks like an X on the bottom of the filter tank. So we're going to put these filters back in, and you just want to make sure that they're seated properly, so you can kind of feel them when you're putting them on, just kind of drop into place, and you know that they're in the right spot. Then we just got to remember to take this black X manifold with this little spring right here. This goes in between the little screen and the standpipe, right on top of the filters. Push them down to make sure that they're on. And then we're ready to put the filter dome back on the filter tank. When doing so, just make sure before you do that you inspect this big black O-ring that goes around the filter, to make sure there's no pine needles or any debris that might have fallen that could get on there, because that could cause a tiny little drip leak. And then you'll have to shut your pump off, take it apart, and make sure you clean that off. Now that I see that there's nothing around there, I also do the same thing when it comes to the bottom of my filter dome, is I just make sure I look and make sure I don't see any, like right here's a little piece of little leaf. Make sure I have nothing on the bottom. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my filter dome like so, and I'm going to go straight down over the filters. And then I push down on top to make sure that I have a pretty good seal here, so I don't notice it popped up. And now I'm ready to put my band clamp back on. Before I put my band clamp back on, what I do is I make sure that I reverse my ratchets so that it's in the righty-tighty mode. And I also make sure I have my assembly, my barrel nut assembly, the 2 washers and the spring, at the ready. For this pool system, there's an automation panel right here, which makes it very easy for me to just set it and it's ready to go. If you're doing this by yourself, which I am most of the time, it can be a little challenging at first to put this band clamp back on. The best advice that I give people, if you don't have a second set of hands, is when you lift this band clamp back up like so, and you make sure that it's around the entire filter tank, I will rest my left knee on this left side of the band clamp, and then use my right hand and my left hand to guide the bolt through the band clamp hole here. Then you just want to make sure you hold these 2 pieces together, so that, because if you let go, the band clamp's just going to fall to the ground. Then I'll get my pieces that are already ready to go. I'll take the small washer with the small hole, put that on the bolt with the threads first. Then I'll take the rest of the assembly, which is the spring, the big washer, and the barrel nut, and I will start threading it righty-tighty. From this point, I'm going to try to tighten it as much as I can by hand before I actually start ratcheting it on. Once I go as far as I can, I get my 7/8 inch deep socket ratchet ready to go, and then I start tightening it. From here, this band is going to get very tight. Remember, the system is under pressure, so you want to make sure that not only it's tight so it doesn't fly off, but it's also tight so it doesn't leak everywhere. So, little tip of the trade that I've learned over the years is, once the system, the band clamp starts to get tighter and it starts to whine just a little bit, like so, I'll stop, and this is where I'll take my rubber mallet Don't use a steel hammer. Use a rubber mallet, and I will gently tap in the back of the band. And the reason that I do this is because since we are tightening this band clamp right here, the band clamp has a tendency to want to tighten closer and more to the front of this top dome. So by gently tapping in the back, it just kind of evenly distributes the band around. And now you'll notice when you do that, it's so much looser. So I'll do that once. I'll give it about 10 to 12 more cranks. Again, this varies on everybody's system and filter. And then I'll do this one more time. And I'll do one last tighten. Once again, it's loose. Even more. There you go. So now the filter system is put back together and we're ready to start everything up. Once I go through my safety check, I make sure that all of the valves are in the correct position on all of the rest of the system, and I'm ready to turn everything back on. I just want to note that you're still going to have this air relief valve open. So now, once we turn the system back on, we're going to basically reverse the process. We're going to refill the tank back up until water shoots out. Once water shoots out, then we will close the air relief valve. I always like to do this too, where the pressure gauge is facing where I'm, the front of the equipment, so I can see it. I don't have to walk around the equipment when I'm out here checking, on the maintenance of my equipment on a weekly basis. But the reason that we do this is because if we just close this air relief valve when we start the system up and everything primes, there's a chance that it can create kind of like a vacuum or an air bubble in this filter tank, and we're only filtering about 50% of our actual filter square footage. So we want to refill the tank, let the water shoot out, close the air relief valve, and we're ready to go. All right, so now we're ready to turn this pool equipment back on. We're ready to fire the pump back up. This is a Pentair IntelliCenter control system. I've already got the schedules preset. We've cleaned the pump basket, we've cleaned the filters, and we're ready to fire everything back up. In doing so, again, when you first touch the screen, you wake it up. You'll notice it's still in service mode. On the bottom right, you'll see settings. You'll press that. We're going to go back to the wrench in service mode, which is where we went originally when we turned it from auto to service. Still in service mode, which is highlighted. Now we're going to go back to the main schedules and programming. There's always a little bit of a delay, but the pump will start priming and we're off to the races. All right, the pool pump is priming. Soon we're going to hear the top of the filter start whistling. And then water's going to shoot out in about a few seconds here. Once the water shoots out, I will shut that air relief valve, and not only is the pump fully primed, but the filter tank is also full capacity of water as well.